Okay, so Mare of Easttown has been a really gripping murder mystery that's had some big twists and turns in it. Episode 7 of Season 1 has just dropped, and in this video we're going to be recapping the plot, explaining its ending, and giving our thoughts on the show as a whole. If you enjoy the video, then please smash the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the guy who doesn't cry over spilt milk that's been thrown through his living room window. Now let's get into Mare of Easttown. Okay, so Mare of Easttown has centered around the mystery of who killed Erin McMenamin. All the men are in suspicion, and it's led to several of them being under the glare of our mayor, played by Kate Winslet. Years ago, Miss Lady Hawk was a bit of a hero in the town, but since then her reputation has started to fall, and she's now not regarded as highly. Several years ago, Mayor's son took his own life, and since then she's lived with her mother Helen, played by Jean Smart. Throughout the season, Mayor losing her child has been reflected in several of the other characters, namely Dawn Bailey, whose daughter Katie had been kidnapped. At one point she admitted that she had lost her daughter to drugs several years before she was taken, and this series in some ways is very much about Mare trying to right the wrongs of the past so others are spared her pain. Mare's daughter also lives with her, as well as her grandson, who was entrusted to her due to his mother's drug addiction. However, she was back on the road to recovery, wanting to gain full custody, and after Mare planted drugs in her car and got caught, she was let go from the case. Mare took things into her own hands, leading to a big revelation. Now, after teaming up with Colin Zabel, played by Evan Peters, the pair managed to track down a man that had been abducting women in the area. Colin caught some quicksilver, and it led to him being one of the most tragic characters in the entire show. Colin was a prodigy detective who we discovered didn't actually solve the case he was famous for, and though he and Mare went on a date, it was purely so she could stay close to the case. Mare, like Colin, was very much someone who had fame overshadowing their current work, and it led to her wrestling with the pressure of living up to her past. Colin still ended up a boner in the end, and the show has used several elements like this to paint out its dour and depressing tone. The entirety of Easttown is just a miserable location, and people are willing to ruin their relationships to get away from it. It's one of the grimmest settings I've ever seen in a TV show, and the place could genuinely be improved by Pennywise. However, what it does provide is a gripping show, and though Colin and Mare managed to discover the man who had abducted Katie, it was revealed that he had an alibi for the night that Erin was murdered. Mare was put back on the case, and the prime suspects lined up with Deacon Mark admitting to being with her the night she was killed. He also tried to hide her bike from the police, but in the end he was vindicated. Erin's ex was also put under the microscope, as his girlfriend Brianna came forward and told the police that he was missing on the morning that she died. However, it was a man named John Ross who looked to be behind the crime. Now, being a murder mystery, there are several twists and turns, and John's brother Billy was even implicated in the crime. Episode 6 culminated with Mare going after the latter as they took a fishing trip together. But there was something that showed things weren't as they seemed, and characters Dylan and Jess went to Chief Carter, who was overseeing the case. They presented a photograph of Erin in bed with John, and we discovered that he was actually the father of her child. Episode 7 opened with Mare stumbling across John pointing a gun at his brother, and after apprehending him, he confessed to it all. John stated that he was Erin's secret lover, met her that night, and they fought over a gun which went off and killed her in the process. It all seemed to be tied up in a nice little bow, but as we know from Mare of Easttown, nothing is as clean cut as it seems. Looking back at the series as a whole, there are reoccurring themes in the show that are repeated in several of the characters. We very much get the feeling of guilt in most of the parents who feel they weren't really there for their children. Mare believes her son ended his own life because she focused on her work instead of him. Dawn lost Katie to drugs and was desperate to get her back when she went missing, and John's confession feels along the same lines. The entire series is pretty much about family and what people are willing to do for the ones that they love. Whether it's money or living a lie, they will sacrifice what they can in order to make it so that their kids are protected. How they blame themselves for the fate of their children is of course reflected in Dawn blaming herself for Katie going missing, John and Laurie for what we'll talk about later, and Mare for her son taking his own life. There's even Dylan, who though not related to Erin's child DJ, still feels like he has to be there for him, and there's this constant repetition throughout every character. They very much live lies and hold on to hope, and as Mare states, they must learn to live with the unacceptable. We'll talk about this later on in the video, but it's a very important idea to deal with. John is sent to jail, and at the courthouse he asks his wife Laurie if she will raise DJ. Laurie has very much been a tragic character in the series, and she has lied at several points to Mare in order to cover for her family. By the end of the episode, her entire life is ripped apart, and between her and Mare there's definitely a feeling of betrayal. She agrees to care for the child, and life starts to get back to normal in Easttown, or so it seems. Deacon Mark is freed, and after Mare says she hopes the next place he goes to treats him better, he states he has nowhere to go and that Easttown is his home. Mare replies yep to this, and I think it sums up how everyone is trapped within the city, and though they know it's possible to have a life outside of it, they don't want to risk losing what they have. They also hope that life will improve there, and Mare's daughter states that her mother secretly loves it there because she believes she can make life better in the town. Now we do see some of these glimmers of hope when Katie is given a new home and DJ gets the ear surgery he needs, though we can see Laurie is fighting through it. Now I don't know if it's because the show has been a constant kick in the balls or because there was some dust in the room, but there may have, I said may have, been a tear rolling down my cheek during this. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and Carrie relapses and ends up going back to rehab, leaving her son in Mare's care. It's a bittersweet win for the latter, and she ends up parting ways with Richard, played by Guy Pearce. He's moving to a town over, and though they say they'll keep in touch, we know deep down that they'll both drift apart. It seems like things are as happy as they'll get, but something keeps itching away about the case to Mare. Not only does she doubt the ballistics, her ex-husband also says that John dropped them off on the night of the murder, and we learn that he wasn't having an affair at the time that we were told he was. After visiting Mr. Carroll, things start to become clear after he states he's been noticing things have been moving about his property. This includes an Eagle Championship mug, the world's best pizza slicer, and a gun that matches the make and model of the one that was used on Erin. We discover this was kept in a shed that's been a big focal point in the series, and discover that there are 2 rounds missing. Only he and another character had access to it, and after Mare checks the CCTV, we see that this is Laurie and John's son Ryan. She goes to his school, and instantly he realizes that the jig is up and sprints home to his mother, who we learn knew about his involvement, and like most of the characters, she was willing to do anything to protect him. Mare takes as many available officers as she can to Laurie's, but he comes along quietly and confesses too. It turns out that Ryan didn't want his family to fall further apart because of his father's affair, which he discovered after finding text messages on his phone. That night he ended up taking Mr. Carroll's gun from the shed, and he tried to scare her with it. He said that he only wanted to frighten Erin, but when she tried to grab the gun, it went off twice, killing her in the process. Ryan called his dad, who, along with Billy, helped him to move the body. They hoped that others would be blamed for the crime, and Laurie is furious that Mare has destroyed her family because she couldn't leave things alone. John is in prison, and Ryan will likely spend a lot of time in juvenile detention. All of their lives are ruined, and Mare has to wrestle with whether she should have solved the case or kept the family together. Mare realizes that she's been putting cases in the way to stop herself from grieving for her son's death, and after saying goodbye to Siobhan, who's left for school, we see that life returns to somewhat normality in the town. We learn that Ryan has started taking writing classes, and that the family have now fully accepted DJ. Pastor Mark returns to work and talks about how we can always come back from tragedies in the community, and this is very much shown here. Their spirits are rising once more, and Mare goes to visit Laurie. Unlike Colin's mother, who slapped her after destroying her life, Laurie collapses into her arms in tears, and the latter holds her whilst having an epiphany. Mare realizes that, much like Laurie, she's been holding on to this pain for so long, and that she hasn't been able to let it out. Finally doing this allowed Laurie to breathe once more, and we end with Mare climbing back up into the attic, which we know is where she found her son's body. Throughout the entire series, Mare has been putting relationships, cases, and whatever she can in the way of accepting the grief. But seeing Laurie break down and being someone that has learned to live with it is an empowering moment. According to executive producer Craig Zobel, the team were discussing whether the camera should follow Mare or not, but they decided not to. We very much leave Mare going off on her own to grieve in privacy, leaving us watching her move on to the next stage of her life. The entire show has been about watching her trapped in this toxic cycle, but her moving on from it shows she's now able to live with the unacceptable. It's a really impactful ending that shows her not only growing, but also moving on to a higher level in which she is no longer running from the past and instead moving towards it. Now, as for my thoughts on the series as a whole, I think there was a lot of highs but a lot of lows too, though they were likely intentional. I've not experienced a show like this in a long time where everyone seems to be trapped in their own personal hell and unable to escape from it. Colin's death was a massive moment in the show, and I think it's probably the first thing that people will think of when they remember this series in years to come. It was really shocking, and I love how the show at several points felt pedestrian, so when this happened, it completely knocked the wind out of you. Now, though it's slow paced, the central mystery is gripping and the acting in this show is superb. This genuinely feels like prestige television, and though I feel like a twat for saying that, I think it's the best way to describe how well the series is made. Tonally, this is so depressing, but I think it works so well to paint out how bleak life can be. It's a really outstanding series that has a lot of twists and turns, and though I doubt I'll be revisiting it, that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. Kate Winslet will no doubt get a lot of attention for her performance, and she'll probably garner some awards from it too. These are much deserved, and Mare of Easttown gets an 8 out of 10. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the finale and the series as a whole. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize drawn the 30th of June in which we're giving away 3 copies of the Phase 3 MCU box set. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on Mare of Easttown. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of Lucifer Season 5 Part 2, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over the entire thing from top to bottom, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want to know more. With that out of the way, thank you for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.